everybody. This is Becky Mossbrucker with the Stronger Together Tribe podcast. And today we are talking to another Becky. It's the Becky night, Becky Ogden. And she's going to talk about her women's divorce group that she has right now on Facebook. And she's going to talk about how she got started with that, why she came up with this idea, and what's going to be in the future for her group. So welcome, Becky. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I really appreciate you coming on. There are so many women that I know that either were divorced, are divorced, thinking about getting divorced, some form or fashion of that. So how did you decide to start this group?
After I severed the last of my ties to my ex-husband, I looked around and all of my friends are happily married and I want them to stay that way. It is so much better for the people that I care about, obviously, but also just in general for society when people are happily married. So I want them to stay that way. But I also need people that understand what my life is like right now. And so I'm like, I need some divorced friends. And I joined a bunch of divorce groups on Facebook and found them to be places of enormous negativity.
No.
And, people are coming, they're sad, they're traumatized, they're grieving, and they're coming to, and rant and vent and stuff. And there's very little connection going on. People offer their support, but then you never hear from those people again. And I really wanted to build friendships. And so I didn't see what I wanted. And so I created it. And
well,
that's what
good
happened.
For you.
Yeah.
You know what? So when I created my company, it started out as a firearms instruction, and it's morphed into a lot of other stuff now, but I did the same thing. I could not find anybody in my area that taught what I wanted to learn. So I had to go out of the state to go find what I wanted. And then came back and I was like, and still almost 6 years later, still nobody's doing what I do in my local area. They do in my state, but not where I'm at, not as a woman. So I'm like, you know what? It's empowering to get outside of your comfort zone and go learn something or learn about a topic and then start groups or communities or whatever, realizing you're the only one in your area that's doing what you're doing. And so when I go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings, because I go to their meetings anyway, but now I'm on the board, and everybody looks at me, they're like, I know what you do. And I'm like, that's not all I do.
Nah.
They
Nice.
remember me for one thing, and I laugh, but on one hand, it's kind of like, that might be a good thing because they'll never forget me, because I am the only woman that does what I'm doing in this area. So they all know me. And then you get the guys that go, hey, baby, you got your gun on you? I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. I'm not going to tell you even if I did. So yeah, it's kind of funny. It's, sometimes what you're known for in the beginning, it's hard for people to erase that and replace that with something else that you're doing new. And I've done craft shows, I've done vendor events. I've organized all these things. I do self defense classes, I do situational awareness classes. Everybody looks at me and goes, you got your gun? And I'm like, it's not always about the gun. Just, it's funny how people kind of give you a little tag and then you got it. But I think it's great that you found something that you wanted to do and that you wanted to help other people. And so you just created it. Sometimes that's just the way to do it. You just have to create it yourself.
Yeah, I've done that for years. I did that as a homeschooler when my older two kids were small, oh, okay, well, I don't see this out there. Okay, well, let's make it. And now I'm stepping into a different thing and doing it that way. So, yeah.
Oh, that is cool. Man, I had a question for you about that and it just escaped me. How long have you been doing this group or this social networking that you're doing?
Well, this particular group, I have poured a good chunk of my energy into for about 6 months. Maybe.
Okay, wow. So it's fairly new.
maybe a little bit longer than that. But like a focus about 6 months.
Oh, wow. I feel like my business has been in business forever. 5 years feels like 500, but yeah, with COVID in the middle of it, I started like 6 or 8 months before COVID started. And I'm like, oh gosh. So kind of hard to do firearms lessons when you're not supposed to be out. Got to just do
Might
the
be.
classroom on Zoom, and that's all for now. So, how many people do you think are in do you have like a community locally that you're doing things with? Or are you doing everything online?
I am not bothering with a local community until I'm in one spot long enough to actually build something like that out. That will happen in July.
Gotcha.
Until then, since I've been traveling since December, I'm visiting
That's
my
fun.
mom right now for a couple months. It's too hard when when I know I'm going to be, oh, I'll be here for a couple of days or here for a week or here for 2 or 3 months, but we're going to be traveling in the middle of that as well. Just hasn't worked out. So right now it's just a strictly a virtual thing right now.
What is the name of your group on Facebook? I'll tag it
It
in the video too, but
it's called the Divorced Women's Social Guild.
I was going to say, in case somebody wanted to go look it up before I get it tagged. All righty. So is there an age group that you're looking at with that group, or is it any woman that's been divorced, period?
Any woman who's divorced who hasn't remarried. Um, I tend to be people tend to either like me or not like me, and not a whole lot in between. I don't get a lot of lukewarm people, and I will say that I kind of describe myself as a divorced gal with kind of an irreverent, sassy, sarcastic streak, and I'm looking for other people that just that kind of identify that way as well, who don't take things super seriously, who are willing to poke fun at things, and who are just really focused on healing and being better. I don't want a bunch of negative Nellies. So that's where I'm. That's who I'm messaging to attract into the group, and people that come in that aren't that way will find themselves uncomfortable, not because I'm like, ooh, I don't want you here, but because they just don't like my energy.
Well, you know what? We Becky's are not for everybody.
I'm okay with that.
I was just going to say that same thing. Yes, ma'am. There are plenty of people who do like us the way we are. So it is what it is. I keep telling my husband, I'm like, look, you know what you got when you married me. So he's
Right.
funny. He's a very quiet man. And so when we're watching, like, especially NASCAR, because we like to watch NASCAR races and go to the races. And he's like, can you just watch the race? I'm like, no. I have lots of questions to ask. So I'm always like, why is that guy doing that? And what's that? And what does it mean to lift? And what is this? I'm trying to learn something. I'm seriously trying to learn something here. I'm not just asking questions to hear myself talk. And he was just like, this is a quiet show. Like, but you knew this when you married me. So he's like, yep, I sure did. There was something else about the age group I was going to ask you about. I do have a couple of friends that are divorced, so I may try to send them your way.
I'll welcome them with open arms.
Yeah. So one of them is a lot like me in the fact that you take me like I am or you don't, right? And so she's a lot of fun to be around because she can look at things a little bit differently than I can. And you need that, to be able to balance each other out. And we were at a social event that I had for my group a few weeks ago. And a lady it was funny because she just showed up. She came over to our table and she said, I see you on Facebook all the time. And I'm like, really? She's like, yes. And I live right next door, like in a condominium right next to this golf resort we were at. And she said, it's my birthday. And I decided I was going to come and have dinner with you all. We didn't know her from anybody. And we were like, come on, sit down, have, a drink or whatever and dinner or whatever. So we hung out with this lady that we didn't know. She said, I'm part of your group, your free group on Facebook. I'm like, I had no idea. So it was funny because we were like, wow, we were in somebody else's backyard and we didn't even know, you know, they she never comments on anything I say or anything. So I'm just like, wow, this is funny. But it was her birthday, so she just sat and talked with us, and she's divorced, and I was like, so now my mind is thinking about all the women I know that are single. I'll have to start sending them your direction. So once you get established in your new area, your new home, you were talking earlier about creating events and maybe trips. And so that's something else that I have wanted to do, is to kind of have a retreat for women that are in, my area, for my category. And it's been interesting trying to put some things together and find a place and get people who can deal with healing like you're talking about. And I think you just need to have the right people at the right time, to get
Absolutely.
that message. So it takes a little bit of time, I think, to organize all of that and get it like, okay, kind of solidified in your brain. And you're like, okay, yes, these people say they're going to come. These speakers say they're going to come, and then have backups, because something may happen in their family and they may not can show up anymore. And you don't want to have a retreat with a big 2-hour gap with nobody there speaking, right? So if you're like me, you can fill in that 2 hours pretty easily. Just talk.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I ultimately want to do retreats as much as I want to do trips.
Oh, okay.
So I'm I want to see things, go do things, and find the obscure things in some town. Not particularly overly interested in the tourist draws, but when I go to an area, I'm like, okay, what's off the beaten path things to do? Let me find some random weird stuff and go scope that out, and just, I don't have any idea what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to explore. So for a trip, it would be more structured than I normally do on my own exploring. But I don't know that I want like a healing retreat so much as just a fun adventure.
So there's another lady that I had interviewed for this podcast about 3 weeks ago who organizes trips for women.
Nice.
I will hook you up.
Okay.
So yeah, she hops from country to country. Her passport book is full, and she keeps getting new books that keep stamping them, because she's just doing exactly what you're saying. She does not sit still for more than 6 months. She's like, nope, the passport or the visa starts to, expire. And she's like, nope, I go to the next country and start planning trips. And she's got people who will follow her and go wherever. Yeah. And it's all women. And I don't know if she has any age, minimums or maximums for any of the stuff that she does. But anyway, she was very cool to talk to. So
nice.
She has everything all lined out. So what area of the country did you spend most of your life? Were you on the East Coast or the West Coast?
Well, I grew up in Washington State and spent
Okay.
most of the last 20 years in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll end up in Florida in July. But yeah, those 3 states I've spent the most time in.
My son actually lives in Arkansas right now, in Fayetteville. So I've gone there a few times. I've gone to Arizona for some gun classes. That was fun. The desert is definitely different than the East Coast.
Yes, it is.
And I did not know that in June. And the first day of my 5-day class, it's all outside shooting. And people were passing out because they were not used to the heat. And I was not doing very well myself. And then one lady came up to me and she's like, have you ever heard about these powder drinks? It's like electrolyte drinks, like Gatorade kind of stuff, but in a powder. And I'm like, of course, I've heard of Gatorade, but I had no idea what she was talking about. And I put one of those things in my water bottle, and I was like 100% better. I was like, it was amazing how fantastic I felt after losing all that salt and sodium, from sweating and just, I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, because I never lived out on the West Coast, so I didn't know what to expect. But there are so many places to explore. It's just, amazing to me, you know, within our own United States. I mean, you don't even have to leave the country
Oh yeah.
to go do so many cool things.
Yep.
So what's one thing you want to do on one of your trips that you're going to plan?
Oh, um, that I'm going to plan for women to do with me. Don't know yet.
Okay.
There's so many things there's so many things to do. I can't believe how much of the United States is rural and
Oh,
just nothing's there. You know, it's wide open land. I spent the month in between December and March traveling, road tripping through a good chunk of the country with my daughter. And I was just floored by how much empty space there is here in this country. Whatever I do, it'll undoubtedly have something to do with nature, some hiking, some kayaking, something like that, some pretty, you know, nature photography kind of adventure, something like that, but I'm not sure what yet.
So I have another girl that I interviewed that does women's hiking trips.
Mm-hmm.
I am meeting so many people and doing these podcasts. It has just been awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I've got a whole list of stuff now. She does overnight trips, and I'm like, call me when you do a day trip. I do not fancy sleeping on the side of a mountain in a sleeping bag. Not my idea of fun at this age. So call me when you get a cabin somewhere and I'll be there. But,
yeah, you could definitely do that. But there's plenty of places with cabins. So
oh, absolutely. I just think it's funny. She's just, you know, she's a young girl. So she's just, you know, nodding, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, I've tent camped, not doing it again. I did it for 3 summers or 3 years, and I was like, nope, I'm done. Not happening. I want the creature comforts. So if I was going to do a trip, because I've lived on the East Coast my whole life, I want to do stuff out west, right? I want to go to the places on the West Coast that I've never seen or that I've been to once, like the Redwood Forest in California. I was there when I was 17. I'm a lot older than 17 now, and I would love to go back and see it again. And, you know, go to Mount Rushmore and do those kinds of touristy things, because I've been one time in my whole life, and I'm like, yeah, I want to go back as an adult to pay attention.
Nice. Yeah.
Because I didn't notice in some stuff. I'm sure I missed some stuff when I was younger, not paying much attention to it all. But I think it would be very cool to go on a trip with women that are in the same mindset as you. So have you thought about, are you going to have like an application process, or when you have your groups and your community, are you going to have people kind of like apply to be in the group? Have you thought how you're going to do that? I'm just curious.
Well, my free community, I do virtual social hours twice a month. That will always be free, and that will be something that any divorced woman can join. And she'll figure out quickly whether she likes the vibe of the group or not. And if she doesn't, she'll escort herself out. And if she does, she'll stay. When I open up the memberships, the virtual calendar membership and the in-person membership, there will be some more steps to joining that other than just pay the fee, you know, because I want to be more intentional about cultivating that community.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say was, yeah. So you just have to be careful, I think. At least
there are some people in my membership, in my group already, that I already know would be great fits for that, and they would not need to go through that, you know, whole process of be like, hey, you're in if you want, you know, you're in if you want. I already know I like you. I already know I jive with you, and so cool. But then there are other people, you know, and then you got to figure out, how do you let people down gently, nicely.
Yep. Sometimes you have to do that. So we've been talking for a while now about your group. So we're going to wrap this up so we can get this on the podcast. You're going to send me your links if you didn't already. I'll have all that at the bottom of the YouTube video, so you all can find her. And I really want you to come back when you get settled in Florida and you have your other group up and running. I want you to come back and tell us how it's going.
Oh, cool. Okay.
You know, kind of keep in touch with me so we can kind of follow you I don't fit in your category anymore because I am remarried, but
Mhm.
you know, I was there
Well,
once, so I know what it felt like.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you much for having me here.
All right, folks, stay tuned for the next podcast pretty soon. We'll see you guys later.